All right, everybody, welcome back to our Metallica album review series. My voice has been kind of going out on me, guys. Had, all this weather changing kind of back and forth and all that. It's kind of had the, allergies and getting on and off colds here. So bear with me here. I got a drink though, just in case to kind of keep me breathing here and keep me keep me able to talk. But so sorry in advance if it's kind of starts going out on me here, but I want to get this thing knocked out and talk about this thing because we got quite a bit to talk about here. A 2-disc set here. Of course, we're talking about the cover album Garage Inc. that came out in 1998, the final album of the 90s here for Metallica. And the final album with this lineup here. Jason Newsted, of course, would end up exiting the band after this due to just some both creative differences, him wanting to work on other projects, them not really wanting him to, that sort of thing. There's kind of you can kind of hear different things from different sides of it, right? But which really his band Echo Brain, which was one of the bands he was wanting to kind of work on, that I can't remember how many records they dropped, but they're really good, really cool, just kind of alt rock kind of sounding group that Newsted, he found those guys and helped in. I guess obviously never really made it big, but you can look up their stuff on YouTube. It's really good stuff. And I know a lot of people, I've covered whenever we did the Ozzy ranking and reviews and everything, I did the cover album there. So some people don't necessarily count the cover albums and everything, but I do. It's a studio release, and this one's kind of a compilation too, right? Because it does include, disc 1 is all the new recordings. Then you've got disc 2 that has Garage Days Revisited, which is like the EP from back in the late 80s they did. A bunch of covers and stuff on there. Then there's the it looks like more of that stuff, from 84. B-sides and one-offs here hold up. Okay, so it looks like Garage Days Revisited is the first part on disc 2. Came out in 87. Then Garage Days Revisited with, that came out in 84. The 2 tracks off there. The B-sides and one-offs, it says 88 through 91. And then Motor Headache, which is kind of like a tribute they did to Motorhead in 95. So we've kind of got, it's kind of a compilation, but also a cover album. But I think it's an important landmark in their career and was big enough of an album for sure to be covered here and to be ranked. Which, I'm not really a big cover album guy to begin with. I love listening to cover songs and stuff. Especially if there's a band throws a cover song or two, on an album of theirs. But I'm totally down with that. But sometimes cover albums can really, they can really be great, because this is one of the cases here. We started off with, we're starting off with this disc 1 here. It's a 2-disc set. Kind of has all the info and stuff on the back. Really cool. And the first disc starts off here with Free Speech for the Dumb. And I've got some of these I've never heard the originals of, right? Because some of these bands these punk bands and stuff, I'm not really a fan of, right? But, especially you could tell if you watch my review of Slayer's Undisputed Attitude, their cover album, which I was not really too fond of. And I'm not really a big punk music guy. So, and with that being said, this first track by Discharge, again, a punk band, I'm not really a big fan of them. Free Speech for the Dumb. It's kind of more it's such a quick, little bit of a song, pretty much. It's 2 minutes, I think. Yeah, 2.5 minutes. So it's not really long. Just kind of says what it says and gets it done. I guess it's okay for the opener, right? Nothing really too phenomenal or anything about it, but not necessarily a bad thing. Kind of cool for the opener, I guess. Then we go with It's Electric by Diamond Head. And this is a solid one. Really like it. I've not really delved into a lot of Diamond Head stuff. I really need to because I do like everything I've heard by them, and I do like them covering this track by them. I think it's solid. Kind of keeps the cool, the cool pace this thing's going at here, the kind of faster paced stuff. But where it really captures me here is on this third track they do. Again, sorry guys about my voice kind of going out on me. But Sabracadabra, Black Sabbath cover. And obviously, if you guys have been here, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan. So, and I think they totally did this justice. Really, really cool cover of this. I love how they kind of, in the breakdown, they combined even a cover of another Sabbath track from that same album of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. They cover Spiral Architect in like the breakdown of this cover of Sabracadabra. I thought that was so cool. I totally forgot about that, it doing that. I've not heard this thing in a while. And man, it's just every time it just like, it just shocks me. I'm like, man, it's so cool. And it really flows perfectly within like the the boundaries of that song. So I think that's a really cool take on a cover. The kind of, and as we'll see in a later song on here, they kind of do that again. We'll kind of make a blend, an amalgamation of songs into one big cover. But Sabracadabra, one of my favorite covers they do on this whole thing for sure. Then we go with Turn the Page, obviously by Bob Seger, and amazing, amazing. They're known for this, and this was a big hit off here. I love, instead of the saxophone, we got, the guitar going down. I love the kind of the emotion still there, the moodiness is still here on this track from the original. So one of my favorites off here too, for sure. I think they do a really, really good job on this one. Fantastic cover, 100%. One that's always been like one of my favorites off here. Then we've got Die Die My Darling by the Misfits, and not really big Misfits guy, right? But they this is pretty cool. They do a good job. Don't mind that at all. Cool song for sure. Again, kind of a punkier one, but one that I can appreciate, and I think they do it justice because thrash metal obviously has its roots with it. Like a lot of the roots came from, it's got punk roots in it, right? But so whenever they kind of thrash it up a little bit more, kind of makes it pretty cool. So Die Die My Darling, another just solid one here. Not one of my favorites, but solid. Then we got Lover Man. That one, who was that by? Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Yeah, this one, okay, this is, I don't know who that is. Never heard of them. Maybe you guys have and are fans, but me personally, I've never heard of that, and this is one I was definitely not a fan of. This was a little weird. I kind of like the darker kind of mood it was going for. Kind of, it was kind of softer at first, everything, but like it didn't really get going for me. So one I'm not really a fan of. I totally forgot that was even a song on this album. And I just that one doesn't really do it for me. One of my least favorites, probably off this whole entire thing. Again, including disc 1 and 2, and it's like 7 minutes, and it just kind of drags for me. And I'm not that obviously I'm not opposed to them big epic songs. I love that stuff. But I love those big epic length songs. But this one just like never really just gets going for me. It does a lot for me. So Lover Man by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds doesn't really do it for me. Then we go with that other amalgamation here of a cover that they just call it Merciful Fate. And it covers, let me pull up, because I know, I just want to make sure I get them all in there, all the ones that it covers. A lot of the stuff from Melissa. In fact, I think it's all from Melissa. Satan's Fall, Curse of the Pharaohs, A Corpse Without Soul, Into the Coven, and Evil. All by Merciful Fate, of course, which is why they call it that, right? And I'm a huge Merciful Fate, King Diamond fan. And so, that was... excellent job. I think it's really cool hearing them cover cover that, and again, it also, much like the Sabracadabra cover on here, that includes more than one song. This one, hell, includes 4 or 5, but the flow of it goes really well, makes it this big, just awesome tribute to Merciful Fate. So, I mean, very, very cool. That is another one that's like top notch stuff here for me. Then we go to Astronomy, a cover of the Blue Oyster Cult song Astronomy, and I think that is and I've not delved. That's another band I've not delved too far into, but I really need to. Because I do really like everything I've ever heard from Blue Oyster Cult, and I've not ever heard this song by them, but clearly I need to go out and do that because I really like this cover. Forgot about this one on here. This is such a big album that a lot of these covers I forgot about, like some of the ones that just they kind of slipped by me, But I think Astronomy was a really cool, actually turned out to be kind of a standout one for me that made me be like, hey man, maybe I need to go dig into Blue Oyster Cult's discography some more. So then we go with Whiskey in the Jar, one they've become, really known for this cover. This one was a hit. And of course, that's an old Irish folk song, but they're kind of basing their cover off of the Thin Lizzy cover of that. And they knocked this thing out of the park. Love the riff they got going for this. One of the best ones off here. Fantastic cover. Again, just that riff is really cool. Just driving, and I love the energy they get with this one. They breathe a whole new life into this track, and I just think it's one of the best damn covers they've done. Then we go with the cover of Leonard Skinner's Tuesday's Gone. This one I'm also a big fan of, man. These kind of James has kind of showed on Load, that hey, he can kind of, really the whole band can kind of play that kind of southern rock, and bring some southern rock elements into their playing and singing. And I think they do it great here. And it goes that they've got a couple of guest hosts on that one. Jerry Cantrell doing background vocals and guitars. They've got Les Claypool's there doing some bass work, right? Because I think this one, it was all new recordings in the studio, but this one was on like some kind of live radio broadcast or something they did, and with a bunch of guys and everything, and I love the harmonica in that thing, it fits just so well, and really I just now read this because I was trying to see where it would if it's mentioned something about that on here, about that not being recorded like in the studio with those sessions. It says somewhat produced on the back. I think that's pretty funny because this stuff's kind of all over, from different spots in their career on disc 2. But yeah, Tuesday's Gone, another one of my favorites off here. Gets, really, I think James' singing on that is just awesome. Did a great job. Then we close that disc 1 with The More I See, another track by that kind of punk band, Discharge, which, not bad or anything, just kind of doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's decent. I think Tuesday's Gone would have been the better closer for that disc 1 to kind of wrap things up. But I guess opening with the Discharge track and then closing with the Discharge track, not a bad idea, not a bad thing by any means. So then we go on to disc 2, and this comes from this part of it comes from the Garage Days revisited 1987 sessions, right? So let me see here. Yeah, so off the 598 EP, that classic EP, and the first one is Helpless by Diamond Head. Again, not delved too far into this, into his discography or anything. Never even listened to a full Diamond Head album before, right? But I do like everything I've heard by him, and I do genuinely like all these covers that Metallica do from Diamond Head on here. Pretty cool. So I mean, this one I didn't have a problem with either. Cool way to kind of, open and kick off that disc 2. Then we go with The Small Hours, also off that session there. That is by Holocaust, which I guess, and I've heard of them, right? Never really dug into them, but that's a new wave British heavy metal band that I definitely need to check out as well, because I like this cover too. Really, really cool. That is something I do like about cover albums or cover songs in general, is that sometimes it can that it can introduce you to bands, or maybe if like it's a band, like obviously I've heard of Blue Oyster Cult, and like I said, I've heard of Holocaust here, and it makes you want to maybe pushes you that extra uh, step into maybe wanting to check out more of their material, right? Because you're like, oh well, Metallica covered them, and I like their cover of it, so kind of makes it kind of, it draws interest pretty much for you towards that band, towards the band they're covering. So I think that's a pretty cool thing cover albums and cover songs can do sometimes. Um, but anyways, yeah, Small Hours, good stuff there. Then we've got The Wait. That one is by Killing Joke, which I know them as well. Cool, kind of like a post-punk kind of 80s synthy group. I've never heard that song by them, The Wait, but I liked their cover of it. So again, definitely need to check that out, more of their stuff out, because I've obviously heard the excuse me, I've obviously heard the song 80s by Killing Joke. That's where kind of like that Come As You Are Nirvana riff pretty much comes from. It's like a slowed down version of Killing Joke's 80s, that song's riff. And I've heard that song, really cool and moody kind of band, and synth. I love that 80s dark kind of synth pop stuff. So, and I think they did a really cool cover there, playing a Killing Joke song. So then we've got Crash Course in Brain Surgery. This one is by, yeah, that's by Budgie, isn't it? Yeah, I thought so. That one is another really, really solid one. Budgie's another band I know who they are, and they covered two of their songs on this disc here. And that's another one I definitely need to delve into more, because I've heard this song, the original, before. It's been a while, but yeah, they do an awesome cover of it. Budgie was a really cool, early hard rock group, that were kind of helping push the envelope a little bit there. And I think they do a solid cover of that. Definitely a standout on this disc too here. Then another Misfits cover here, Last Caress, Green Hell. And I think they do this is another solid job at it. Again, not a big Misfits guy or anything, but I respect them for what they are. And a lot of those punk bands, I can, even though it's not my cup of tea, I can totally understand why people would like it and everything. And I respect, their, contribution to music as a whole. So I think, that's cool. They're paying tribute to them. They clearly influenced them here, right? And I think they do a good job at this cover. So then we hop on to the Garage Days Revisited 1984. So Creeping Death, eras, or I'm sorry, not Creeping Death, but well, I guess, yeah, it says Creeping Death B-sides, right? So Ride the Lightning era covers. So these two, with these being from that area, you've got Cliff Burton. You get to hear a little bit more of him, which is always a good thing on bass. So Am I Evil, Diamond Head? Who hasn't heard that, right? That's a kick-ass song. And they just bring that aggression to this one, knock it out of the park, and one of the best covers, one of the best tracks off this whole cover album here, of all. That's like probably like the top 3 or 4 for me here is Am I Evil. They do an incredible job. So knock it out of the park, and it's cool. Obviously, always hearing Cliff Burton on bass, especially as we're kind of going in order here, kind of getting to, hear back even some more of them, even though these were obviously out in 84, those B-sides of like Creeping Death. But it's, we're listening to them on here, going in the order of these studio albums. Cool to kind of hear, posthumously in order back to Cliff Burton's playing. So always a treat there. And then we go with the only other one off there would be Blitzkrieg. And that one, I guess they're another kind of punk band, I believe. I think is what I've never really heard of them, and it's, or no, it says heavy metal. Okay, well, never really listened to them. But and the song's called Blitzkrieg as well, right? But and it was okay. Nothing I was didn't really stand out to me too much. But maybe I'll check them out. Especially it said, hey, they're heavy metal. I'll probably like it, but maybe this song wasn't bad or anything, right? But it didn't really stick out to me too much or anything. Then we go on to the B-sides and one-off section here that was from 88 to 91, Injustice for All, Black Album era of the band here. And another Budgie track here that I've heard the original of from them, Bread Fan. And I think this is another one. They just knocked these Budgie covers out of the park here with this. And another one that is one of the standout ones here on disc 2 for sure. And easily probably in like the top 5 out of all these tracks here. I mean, you get a good 2 hours of listening on this little double disc thing, right? So there's a lot of, and that's what's great. There's a lot to pick from here. A little bit of everything with this cover album here. Then we go with The Prince, which that's another Diamond Head one that I hadn't heard actually, right? But it was good yet again. They covered, like I said, they covered Diamond Head several times on here, and each one is pretty kick-ass. So I gotta go listen to Diamond Head album, and start diving into that stuff. Clearly, that's a sign, right? I've liked every single one of those covers they've done of Diamond Head material on here. So that definitely means, hey, check them out. And then this one is like in probably like the top 3 or 4 here for me out of the whole thing. Stone Cold Crazy, obviously by Queen. Man, and that's like, people kind of describe that, have, called that track by Queen almost like proto thrash, right? Like it's a fast paced, just like it definitely, clearly it inspired, thrash metal. They're playing it here. It's one of their influences. That's what cover albums are all about. Paying tribute to songs, artists that influenced you, and just the speed. Obviously, I'm not calling Queen a thrash metal band or the original song a thrash metal song, right? But I'm just saying it kind of it's an early sign of that, right? Kind of with the speed and just the attitude that song kind of has. And I think Metallica just kick major ass when it comes to covering that. That's always been one of my favorites off here as well. That stood out big time. Then we get So What, another punky kind of track. This one's by Anti-Nowhere League. Never heard of them, and this one's kind of like, okay, kind of lame. Not really a big fan of this one. Just kind of like, pretty much just much like a lot of punk stuff, at least I've ever heard. It's just kind of like, oh, we're so what? We're, like the track says, we're just going to kind of, it's just being anti-establishment big time, and kind of, which obviously, I mean, there's not anything wrong with that, but like, it's just like, it's kind of too, like, over the top with it, like, and just kind of like, I don't know. I'm just not really into it, right? It's just like a little corny, pretty much, is what I'm trying to say here. But so not my cup of tea or anything. Then we go with Killing Time by Sweet Savage. Never heard of that band before, but then I looked, as I've got pulled up over here on Wikipedia. It's apparently a band that Vivian Campbell, obviously from Dio and Def Leppard, guitar player for them, and River Dogs, one of his bands, and he's just if you guys see my Dio reviews, you know how much I'm a big Vivian Campbell fan. Just incredible guitar player. Insanely underrated. I don't think he's fully utilized in Def Leppard, quite frankly, but that's a whole nother deal, right? But I thought this was really cool. Really cool track. So, and I had no clue Vivian was a part of this band, Sweet Savage, so I definitely need to go check them out too. Because, pretty much anything Vivian's on, I gotta check out, right? I did so with River Dogs, and that's amazing, amazing band. Early '90s kind of southern bluesy rock kind of band. All right, and then for the last kind of section here of this disc too, Motor Headache. That again that kind of tribute show they did for I think like Lemmy's birthday or Motorhead's anniversary, something like that. Came out like when it was recorded in 1995. So obviously these next final four tracks here are all Motorhead covers, and I like Motorhead, so them covering this stuff, solid stuff, especially Overkill right here. Really, really cool cover of Overkill. Obviously one of the big Motorhead tracks right there. So knocked that one out of the park. Same with Damage Case. I mean, pretty much all four of these, you got Stone Dead Forever, and then they close it out with Too Late, Too Late. All four of those Motorhead tracks from this Motor Headache session here, they absolutely kill them. Motorhead is also kind of like one of those bands that really are like an early sign of thrash metal, and would definitely influence that subgenre of metal because due to the speed and all that. I mean, hell, they could be considered borderline that. I know Lemmy has called themselves a Motorhead a punk band before, and I guess I kind of see those elements in there too, which kind of goes back to again thrash metal having some of its roots come from punk metal or from not punk metal but punk music as a whole. But so yeah, all these Overkill, Damage Case, Stone Dead Forever, Too Late, Too Late, all awesome right in a row. 4 Motorhead tracks, Metallica playing Motorhead, big thumbs up here. So you can't go wrong there. Them just adding more, or not more of, right? Not more of an attitude or a punch, because I prefer the Motorhead originals to these 4 covers here. But I think it's a cool tribute. I mean, they don't really necessarily jump out at you for being way too different or anything. Like some of these covers are really unique, but they're good for what they are. So guys, yeah, with that being said, this will be, again, included in the ranking and everything. This is one of my favorite cover albums, I could say, of all time, because like I said, I'm not really, most of the time, if I want to listen to a band, I don't want to hear them play other people's music all the way through, right? But cover songs that are usually, like a band includes 1, maybe 2 cover songs on an album of theirs, I'm always like, hey, that's cool. And I do like to hear bands' interpretations on, artists that inspired them. And especially when they really bring a unique take on it, like, with stuff like, I love Turn the Page. I guess I wouldn't say that's like an ultra unique take on it or anything, right? But like, I love, like, instead of the saxophone, it's the guitar that's doing that main kind of saxophone melody and everything. But again, Whiskey in the Jar is just an awesome, awesome cover there they did. Sabracadabra, Merciful Fate, Tuesday's Gone. I love their Am I Evil, Bread Fan. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff on here. This is one of those cover albums that I'm like, man, there's a lot here, for your punk fans, right? You got a little bit of that on here. You got kind of that southern kind of aspect here with, stuff like Tuesday's Gone and stuff like that. And then you've got, your just straight up heavy metal with the Motorhead covers, and, so just a little, and then your classic rock stuff with, the Blue Oyster Cult and Queen. There's just a little bit of everything on here. And I think it's, 2 hours, 2 discs worth of just some awesome stuff. Like I said, there's a couple of these I don't really care too much for, but I think it's a great cover album. And like I said, again, I just reiterate, not the biggest fan of cover albums, but this one right here is one of the better ones I've ever heard. And ones I most enjoy going through. Because a lot of times, the cover albums, excuse me, the cover albums that really I don't like that much are the ones that, it's like they sound exactly like the original song, or attempt to sound exactly like the original song, and don't really try to bring nothing new to it or anything. but Metallica bring their own, unique flavor to each of these covers, I think. Some more so than others, which those are obviously the ones I'm leaning more towards liking. But yeah, guys, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these covers, and this album as a whole, and maybe what you guys think of some of these bands that, again, that I, that are covered on this album that maybe you guys like that. I've said that I've not really delved into. Maybe some album suggestions from some of those bands that I've not maybe delved into too much, and all that. So that's always cool to talk about with these. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on cover albums as a whole, cover tracks, what your guys' kind of thoughts on are about these. And like I said, this will be the last time we see this line up next, with Jason Newsted leaving the band. So next time, we'll be looking at the 2003 album Saint Anger. Big old controversy of an album there. So that'll be fun looking at. And that one should be interesting to hear everybody's thoughts on. So stay tuned for that, guys. Saint Anger will be coming up next. New lineup, new decade for the band. So that one will be big change in sound for sure there. So stay tuned for that, guys. Let's talk about this thing down there in those comments. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. Thanks.